Welcome to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. My special guest today is Brenda Cusick. She is a local resident here in Prescott and has become an expert on two of our local favorites, two women who made their mark here in Prescott, and they've left their mark on not only our state but our country through their drive to seek their muse and their passions. And we're talking about Kate Corey, the artist, and Grace Sparks, the civic leader. Brenda, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Grace, Kate, and Charlotte, they were three powerful women here.
Wow. You talk about the angels of Prescott.
Yeah.
Those three women really left their mark here. And we are going to focus much of our show today on Kate Corey because on March 10th, Tuesday night the 10th, here are Twilight Tales. We're having an evening entertainment where Brenda, who has been appearing and studying Kate for how many years have you been interested in studying Kate Corey? When did that passion start?
It was about 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And had you been aware of Kate Corey before you and your husband, your family moved here to Arizona?
No. In fact, I was helping put on a show at the Western Heritage Foundation, and people kept dropping out, and as the producer, I was like, uh-oh, I better start finding something that I can do in case we lose another presenter. And that's how it started.
That's how you discovered Kate Corey.
Yep.
And did you have an interest in Western art or women Western artists? California has a great heritage of kind of American Californian Impressionism.
Yeah.
Women very early in the Western U.S. as photographers, essayists, writers. So did you grow up with any interest in the art, California art scene or Western art?
Well, I should say yes, but the reality is no. I'm more of just somebody who believes that women are very capable and that we should talk about both genders. And so sometimes when you talk about that and say, I think we need presentation about a woman, the answer from, is like, okay, make it happen, Brenda. And that's what we did.
So Kate Corey was a very close friend of Sharlot Hall.
Yeah, she's buried right next to her.
Right. And Grace Sparks, I don't want to get too far away from mentioning her. We're going to come back. We'll have some segments on both of them. We may, and then Grace Sparks is another woman of just immense determination and fortitude. I don't know if they had a large family. I know her father was a very successful mining engineer.
Yeah, he was.
Moved here to Prescott with young Grace. Did she have any brothers or sisters?
If I remember right, there were, because I know she raised her nephew as a son.
That's right. And Grace goes to Sacred Heart School and finds herself with an opportunity at a very young age to work for the county. Was that one of her first jobs, working for the county and the tourism?
Yes, absolutely. I think it was the city first and then the county second. But she went to business school in Prescott.
Okay.
I'm sorry, in Phoenix.
All right.
And then I haven't found any evidence of it, but I would imagine her father had some influence in getting her the job. And it was right as they were starting the Chamber of Commerce. So.
Right. And is she the secretary?
She was, and I call her Madam Secretary because it was that type of a secretary.
Right. And really a very young woman who is not, she has obviously a very strong role model in both her parents. They raised her with education as a young woman in an era in which majority of women were not going, maybe even finishing high school, let alone going on to a business school.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so raised with an expectation that she's going to be an educated young woman, which her friendship with Sharlot Hall, obviously a woman of letters, and Kate Corey, a woman of letters.
Kate Corey even taught at University in Manhattan. So, yeah, these were very unusual women. They never got married. They considered their careers or their passion as their life's work.
Right. So a little snapshot on Prescott here just before just after World War One, early 1920s, right?
Yes.
Charlotte is is kind of reinventing herself. It's an era in which she's no longer involved as she hasn't been territorial historian for a while. She's starting to build her future and is becoming a civic leader known statewide, actually goes to Washington, D.C. in 1924, right? It's 1924. She takes the electoral ballots, or early 25 for Calvin Coolidge in 24.
Are you talking about Charlotte?
Charlotte Hall, right?
I don't know her history as much, so
yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
So Sharlot Hall's a very prominent woman here in Prescott, and developing, obviously, a friendship and mentorship of Grace. When does Grace begin working for the county? Is it 1912, 1913, right in there early on?
Yes, they started the chamber in 1911. I believe they hired her in 1912, and then she stayed for 35 years.
And that's right at the time when she started here that Sharlot Hall is the territorial historian.
Yes.
And so, obviously, if you're a young woman here in Prescott and you've got this position and you know that the goal is we're going to promote Prescott, make sure that it, even though it's no longer the state capital, that it is a prominent urban community, that is a community of record with a railroad and the highways, and that it is a going concern.
Yep.
And she's not going to leave it behind. So when does Kate Corey enter the picture?
Same exact era. So she lived with the Hopi Indians on the mesas from 1905 to 1912.
Okay.
She bought land here in 1911, and her Hopi friends helped to build a pueblo. It's a tiny pueblo. It still exists. And she moved here in 1912. So it took about a year and a half.
All right. Which is the time that Charlotte has been pushed out of the territorial historian position because as a new state, Governor Hunt decides he doesn't believe that a woman should hold that position. So I'm sure that there's some commission that these three women, separated by some age, Kate is 10 years younger than Charlotte?
I don't know. I feel bad that I don't know that much about Charlotte, but you could definitely tell me.
Charlotte was born in 1870 and passes in 1943.
So I believe, Kate would have been just a little bit older than her, but lived much longer.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay, so they're kind of peers, and then of course Grace is much younger, and is, but really is mentored by Charlotte, and then just picks up the ball and runs with it.
Yeah, and she had not only that, but we have a history of strong women in this town. The suffragettes were here.
Francine Munns. Right?
Yes, and
Mund.
And Bucky O'Neill's wife, Pauline. She was very powerful suffragette. And then, of course, the Monday Club and all the work that they did here. So there were lots of people to take both Kate and Grace under their wings here in Prescott. And it would have been an interesting time to be a woman here.
Yeah. And obviously, Arizona is one of the western states that gives women the vote earlier than the rest of the country. And kind of many people believe that, and the late Jana Bommersbach talked about this. She was from North Dakota. She said, it was a struggle for women to get the vote. She said, but you have to remember that in all those western states, men had to vote for it.
Yeah.
And so it says something also about men realizing that their success as ranchers or business owners or farmers in these western states was a 50-50 deal. It took a lot for both, either individually or as a couple and as a family, if you're going to make it. It's lightly populated, and you have to remember that you didn't make it without working as a team.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely. And those women, men wanted women to move out here. It was a big incentive for some ladies. And that was Kate Corey. She was, I don't know if you've ever watched The Gilded Age. It's a big famous show. So Kate was a socialite in Manhattan during the Gilded Age.
How about that? I did not know that.
Yeah,
that's really
her
fascinating.
background.
And I think what's also interesting is that the western states also very early on took it very seriously to develop their land grant colleges. And the majority of them were all co-ed. I have a great-grandmother who graduated in the first decade of the 20th century from the University of Wyoming, daughter of Swedish immigrants.
Yep.
So the schools were co-ed. The colleges, those land grant colleges in these big western states, were open, and they needed teachers, nurses. They needed both men and women to attend, and they were open as co-ed schools. It wasn't like the East. There was a new opportunity
Absolutely
in the West. And I find it really fascinating. I don't think I ever connected the dots until right now, Brenda, that you have adopted and make presentations on both Kate and Grace, and that there was this force that brought all of these women together here as Arizona was becoming a state.
Yeah. And those three shaped a lot of how Prescott is today.
Right. And before we take a quick break and thank our sponsors, I just want to leave our listeners with this. It's very hard, and you want people to think about this. It's very hard 114 years later to realize that Prescott in 1912 wasn't that much smaller than Phoenix or Tucson, and as the stars on the field of county seats, county seats in Arizona in 1912 held a lot more sway and power on daily life in Arizona, not just as a county seat, but as a urban center of commerce for Yavapai County, one of the largest counties in the state. And so Prescott had a lot of influence, much more influence 114 years ago than it does today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you were a leader in some way, culture, history, civics,
art,
boosterism, art, then you could make a difference here in Prescott, Arizona.
And those three ladies did.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Brenda, let's take a quick break and thank our sponsors. We'll be right back, and we're going to talk a little bit about your upcoming show here at Sharlot Hall Museum on March 10th at 5 o'clock p.m. on Kate Corey, the great Arizona artist.
History matters. For nearly 100 years, the Sharlot Hall Museum has preserved our community's story. And over at Findlay Toyota, they believe in that same legacy of trust and reliability. That's why we're proud they support us here at the Sharlot Hall Museum. Just as Toyota has a long history of building vehicles you can depend on, Findlay is committed to our community's future. Go see their amazing selection of new and used Toyotas. Experience a legacy of quality for yourself. Findlay Toyota on Willow Creek Road in Prescott. Did you know our very own Sharlot Hall Museum is now an officially accredited arboretum? That's right! The museum has been awarded Level 1 accreditation by ArbNet and the Morton Arboretum, joining a prestigious global network of arboreta. Thanks to the dedication of our great groundskeepers, horticulturalists, and volunteers, the museum boasts trees, shrubs, and perennials native to the region, as well as historical plantings with stories to tell. Some even trace back to Sharlot Hall herself, like the 2 apple trees and the great London plane tree. Learn more about this incredible recognition and the stories rooted in our history here at the museum by visiting charlottehallmuseum.org. Sharlot Hall Museum, where community, culture, and history meet.
Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. My special guest today is Brenda Cusick, and we are talking today about Grace Sparks and Kate Corey. 2 women have been very inspiring their lives and their careers to Brenda. And Brenda, you bring a quality to the stage in your passion and interest in interpreting the life stories of Grace Sparks and Kate Corey. I was recently at here at Sharlot Hall, you've done in the last year your one-woman play presentation on Grace Sparks, and recently at Westerners as well.
Yeah.
And do you consider it a Chautauqua?
You know, I took inspiration from, now I'm going to forget
Jody
her.
Drake?
Jody Drake, because she does it that way. And my challenge was sometimes people want to ask me a lot of questions, and it's about modern things. So I also took a chapter from the gentleman who portrays Teddy Roosevelt.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he does a fantastic job here in Prescott. And he said that his take on it is more like he's a ghost, so that he can answer modern questions. So,
Very interesting.
yeah, so it is sort of like Chautauqua, but I had to adapt it because, you know, these ladies that I'm talking about lived here, and people will ask me questions, you know, like, oh, my grandma babysit her or something, you know, at this house.
Right.
And have you ever visited that house? Well, how are you supposed to ask that?
Right.
Answer the
Right.
questions about that.
So coming up here on March 10th, you are bringing your one-woman play presentation, an interpretation of the artist Kate Corey, the college-educated college professor in Manhattan, University of Manhattan.
No, it was something like the Cooper Union, which still exists.
Oh, yeah, very well known, sure. And Life as an Artist, Kate Corey, here on March 10th. So we talked in the first segment a little bit about how you moved here to Prescott with you and your husband and your family, and you became inspired by Kate Corey. Tell me a little bit about Kate Corey's life before she gets to Prescott. I'm interested in that story.
Okay, well, Kate was a very wealthy young lady. Her father was a stockbroker in Manhattan. He had moved his family there from Waukegan, Chicago, where he owned the newspaper there.
So a very successful gentleman.
Very successful, had lots of money. His son, one daughter. She wasn't quite the average socialite, didn't really necessarily want to get married, which... so she taught lots of socialites how to paint, and she got in trouble a little bit sometimes because women were relegated to painting children, flowers, domestic type things. And she didn't want to only do that.
Right.
But she came from a family that were actually on the Underground Railroad when they were in Chicago. So they had different views from many folks in that day, and they allowed Kate to do what she wanted to do.
Right. Did Kate ever go to Europe at a young age?
She did not. That's a good question. But she had, and her family had cabins along the Hudson River, and they were good friends with the Abercrombies.
Okay.
And in fact, Lucy Abercrombie was her best friend. So.
Oh, how about that? So the Hudson, kind of that like the Thames in England, the Hudson River Valley socialites, the Rockefellers, and
yes, exactly.
Everybody who had their homes up and down the Hudson River Valley outside of New York. And I know that maybe she did not rebel enough to go join the bohemian communities of Paris or Madrid or Rome, but she did, like a lot of men and women, decide that if she could go somewhere, she'd go west.
Yes.
So when did she leave the New York area to come west?
It's a very good question. So it was 1905. Both of her parents had passed away. And she really, and I get to read her diaries. Many of them are here in your archives. And she thought her life was pretty much over and had passed her by. She was a spinster.
So by this time, she's 35, 40 years old?
She's in her 40s.
She's in her 40s. Okay, so she's born during the Civil War.
Yes.
Sounds like.
And a gentleman comes to the Pen and Brush Club, which she was a member of, named Louis Aiken. And you probably know who he is. He's
Sure.
a famous artist of the Grand Canyon. He was a bohemian, kind of a little bit wacky, and he had been on the Hopi Mesas, and he'd been at Taos, and he came back to Manhattan and was trying to create a artist colony like Taos, but in a different pueblo here in the Arizona territory on the Hopi Mesas. And so he tries to convince Kate and her roommate to come out to Arizona. And Kate is now very wealthy. Her parents have passed away. She has, well, her inheritance. And she decides, yeah, I'm going to get a round trip train ticket and go see what Lewis is talking about. She had her brother by this time lived in Seattle, was important in government there. So goes out to Seattle, sees him.
And Seattle's gets overlooked, I think, sometimes on the West Coast in terms of its influence on American culture in that time period.
And importance, yes.
Yeah. And I've read a lot about Seattle in that era. And it's a Boston, New York, Philly combo kind of, San Francisco, of course, is San Francisco. But in the Northwest, Seattle's very influential.
Yes, and it was not quite as wild as San Francisco.
Right.
So.
Banking, railroad, timber, barons. There's the shipping barons, and then the gold coming from Alaska. Because you've got the big Alaska gold trade happening at that time.
Yeah. So that's where she had went, and then on her way back, and her brother tried to talk her out of going to the Pueblo. And you probably know this location too. She gets off the train at Canyon Diablo.
Oh, sure.
So that was considered one of the most dangerous places in the territory.
Right, that's right.
In fact, our own Sheriff Bucky O'Neill had gotten Parker Fleming at that exact location.
Right,
it was years before. But so Kate writes in her diary that when she gets off the train, there's no one to greet her, even though she's pre-written to a trader who's supposed to meet her, and that there's just a couple rough-looking cowboy-type men standing, and they tell her to get back on the train, and she doesn't do it. She's like, no.
So she's there in Canyon Diablo. And what year is this again?
1905.
1905.
Yeah.
So way out west, long ways from Manhattan and the Hudson River Valley.
And a long way from anything in Arizona. Flagstaff was the closest thing.
Yeah. It's a small, probably 2 or 3 little, not much in terms of wholesome businesses in Canyon Diablo at the time.
Exactly.
And when does the trading post owner, the trader, come down to pick her up? How does she get to Hopi?
That's a good question. So she is told that he'll be back in a couple days. He's picking up a load in Flag, and that she should go around the edge of the depot, and his wife will take care of her until he gets back. So she knocks on the door of a little kind of homestead shed type place, and it's opened by a Navajo woman who doesn't speak English.
All right.
So she takes care of Kate till the trader gets there. And I love this story too. When the trader comes back, he's like, hey, I can't take you to Hopi right away because I have to go to the meteor, the big crater. I have to deliver lumber out there. And do you want to come with me? And Kate, even though she's a spinster in her 40s, in her diary, she talks about how scandalous this is. But she's not going to miss this opportunity.
Right.
So she has to ride a donkey because his what do you call that thing? The big travel trailer filled with goods to take to the crater.
His wagons, his
freight wagons. Sorry,
his freight wagons.
Couldn't come up with the word.
He's got his freight wagons, but she's not going to sit up front with him. She's got to ride by herself.
Yeah, and he doesn't.
Less scandalous.
Yes, but she's never really ridden a donkey. She's ridden a horse before,
right?
Not a donkey. So.
Yeah.
So she talks about that and how crazy it is, and how she cannot believe how many stars are in the sky, and just the detail that she writes in her diary about being wrapped up, and the trader says he's wrapping her up like a burrito, and she doesn't know what a burrito is. So I just love the stories in her. She was an artist in words too.
Right, right.
And in fact, she wrote an epic poem. I have a copy of the book that she published here, and undoubtedly was influenced by Sharlot Hall and her poetry.
Right. And so 1905.
Yeah.
And so how does she find herself to the Mesas?
So the trader does eventually take her there. She records a great story about how there's a Hopi waiting for the trader at Diablo Canyon Diablo. And the trader tells him something in a language he can't understand, and then he takes off running. And Kate says, where's he going? And the trader said, well, he's running back to the mesas where we're going. And she's like, he's going to run all the way there? And he's like, yeah. And as we know, in future time,
Right.
Hopi win Olympic for running races for
That's
the
right.
U.S. because that's what they did. They ran.
Right.
And so it takes her 2 days with the trader in his freight wagon to get there. And she records a story about they stop halfway. There's another Navajo family there. And he has several wives. And how she's just like, okay, this is a whole new place where I am going. And she's quite frightened at this point, thinking, what have I done? And she records that night how she slept with her return train ticket clutched in her hand.
And when you say record, this is in her diary.
Yes, in her diaries.
Right,
So
right.
they do get to Hopi, they get to Palaka, which is the federal town at the bottom of Hopi Mason, where Walpi is at the top of it. And they don't have any accommodations for a single woman. They don't know what to do with her. So they put her on the floor of the schoolhouse for a few days. And by this time, she's not as scared, and she decides to stay there. So she's been meeting some of the ladies who live there, but she wants to meet the Hopi. And when she's up on the top of the mesa in Walpi, she's able to communicate somehow with one of them, and they agree to rent one of their top floor apartments to her. And she thinks she's going to stay. She's waiting for Louis Aiken to show up to see if they're going to do this artist colony or not. And he never shows up. This is me being, the bad feminist. Like, typical man. No.
So Louis Aiken never arrives.
No, he never
Convinces her that she should move to Hopi.
Yeah. And she records in her diary, this is quite a bit later, several months later, that I am the art colony. It's me. And she loves it. She stays. She rents that apartment. She becomes very ingrained in everyday life. And she has all kinds of adventures while she lives there. She's in the middle of some very treacherous kind of confrontations between the Hopi and the Navajo, sometimes between the federal people and the Hopi. And she becomes quite a good advocate for them, and including becoming a school teacher. Otherwise, there were many children that by this time she knows them and their mothers, they would have been shipped off to school down in Phoenix or farther east.
Right.
And so she finally relents and says, okay, I'll teach school. But there is no English to Hopi dictionary, and she writes it. She creates it.
How about that?
Yeah. And it's here in Prescott.
It's here?
Yeah, it's at the Museum of Indigenous People here.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's remarkable. Well, let's take a quick break and thank our sponsors again. We'll come back and talk more about Kate Corey, the remarkable American woman.
Yeah.
And I think I think everyone right now realizes the importance, a certain crossroad in Arizona history of Prescott, history of Sharlot Hall Museum, that we need to bring elevate these stories of these important women to the national level.
Ah, yes.
And we'll be right back on Arizona Roundup.
Great.
At Foothills Bank, they're not just about banking. They're about people, community, and building futures. Whether you're managing personal finances, growing your business, planning for retirement, or buying your dream home, their friendly team is there to guide you every step of the way. Stop by your local Foothills Bank today. It's more than just banking. It's a partnership for success. Foothills Bank is a division of Glacier Bank, member FDIC. If you're looking for the store that has everything, Prescott True Value Hardware might be your answer. From having that part to fix your leaky faucet, to decorating your garden with charm, they've got it all, and a friendly face to match. For over 30 years, they've proudly served Prescott, supporting neighbors like you and local nonprofits along the way. Visit Prescott True Value Hardware. They're more than just a hardware store.
Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. And my special guest today here is Brenda Cusick, and we are talking today about Kate Corey and Grace Sparks. But specifically, we're really kind of getting into some stories here about an amazing American artist, Kate T. Corey, who grew up in New York and Manhattan in the Gilded Age, is a peer of Georgia O'Keeffe. Mm-hmm. Many of the artists who come west, who are in New Mexico, the bohemians of San Francisco, the writers and the artists of the West Coast. She goes to Seattle from Manhattan and then comes to Arizona, way out of her lane.
Yes.
From and in the break, you were talking a little bit that she had gained had some notoriety for her American Impressionist art in showing in New York before her parents passed, before she goes to Seattle.
This is later on. This is later on. It's around 1912, when we're becoming a state.
So 1905, she moves to Hopi.
Yes.
Which mesa?
She lived on both First and Third, so she lived in Walpi. And then later on, to help with school children, she goes to Arabi.
So she becomes a grammar school teacher. Mm-hmm. And
much to her chagrin. She didn't really like children.
Okay. Well, and she doesn't marry.
Yeah.
Right? We know Grace Sparks, someone asked her why she didn't marry. She said she already had a full-time job.
Yes.
Right? I think Sharlot Hall just ignored those questions. And so does Kate start to develop her artwork on Hopi beyond, because she also is a photographer. We know that. Mm-hmm. But so was Frederick Remington. I mean, one of the things that I think gets separated out, and my father had a very good friend, Jack Johnson. Jack's still living. Jack was an art director at Foot Cone Building in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Really successful art director. Yeah. And my dad was there with a whole lot of young men and women in the early 60s working in advertising. And I remember Jack would start, he would go with a family to Wisconsin, and he would go to the beach, and he would take slides, and he started doing plein air and very impressionist style watercolors and etc. My parents bought some from him, but then Jack moved to Warner Brothers. He became a production designer, art director, and an artist for the studios. And but Jack's art was connected to his photography. And that's the first time as a kid I started connecting the dot between artists as photographers and artists, fine art artists. Mm-hmm. And it was years later that I figured out that Frederick Remington had a camera with him that he used for his great art. So I think it's interesting to think about the whole person of Kate Corey, ethnologist, artist, essayist, photographer, educator. Mm-hmm. Fascinating woman.
She was very well-rounded, and she was perfect for coming to the West. She just didn't take no for an answer, and she adapted to what needed to be done at the time.
So how does she find her way to Prescott, Arizona?
Good question.
From Hopi, because she could have gone anywhere to the rail. She comes down to the railroad and east, west, south. Yes. How does she get here?
I can't remember. Somebody recommends that she come to Prescott and check it out, and she loves it. She loved the forest. She loved Thumb Butte, was kind of obsessed with it. Mm-hmm. And buys land very quickly and has a house built for her by the Hopi. And it still exists here. It's kind of camouflaged as a Western house now. Oh. So and the people who live there are a photographer and his wife. I've been inside. It is fascinating. It has art embedded in the walls. It has handprints, just like they make the
Wow.
Pueblos in Hopi. It's tiny because Kate was like 4'8". She was very small.
Oh, very
It,
petite woman.
very petite. She becomes a vegetarian and very particular about what she'll eat and what hours and what she'll drink with
Interesting.
food, why she lives with the Hopi. And it has to do with the Hopi's religion and their lack of access to a lot of different kinds of foods. So she becomes even tinier than Victorian woman,
Right.
which is kind of ironic sometimes that I try and portray her because I'm 5'4" and quite Kate could be 2 or 3 of me. So.
I don't know about that, Brenda, but but she sounds eccentric.
She's very eccentric by the time. Well, she lived to 97 years old. So
What a life!
yes, and she died at the Pioneer Home. So
So we're talking about a life that goes from
Manhattan,
the 1860s,
yes,
Manhattan,
exactly.
Gilded Age,
to
the
most remote, primitive place you could live.
to the early 1960s,
Yes, exactly. 57, if I remember
1957.
right. Yeah.
So from the Civil War era to the Atomic Age,
Yeah.
Gilded Age to the Atomic Age,
Yeah.
Victorian America.
She saw cars invented. She saw airplanes invented. And that's another fascinating story about her. With her ties to Abercrombie family and another military family, she is asked to create camouflage for the desert. And it has to do with World War One, Great War. Because they're having trouble in northern Africa and the planes are getting shot down.
Oh, are you sure it's not the beginning of World War II when Eisenhower's forces invade North Africa in 1942?
It could be, but I'm not positive. Anyway, they recruit her to help because she's been painting deserts and understands camouflage for deserts. And I believe you have a painting of a biplane.
We
or
do,
two.
which would tie into the World War One.
Yeah.
And that was our first air of American flyers, and yeah, we do have a beautiful painting by Kate Corey of a biplane over the desert.
Yeah, so I could be confused. She may have been asked to help with both wars, but very. I mean, her family was so well connected that it doesn't surprise me that she was asked to do those types of
Right.
things.
So you mentioned earlier that she wrote some poetry. Is there any of her poetry you'd like to share?
Oh boy, it's an epic poem, so it's long. It's like 32 pages
The
long.
Legend of Thumb Butte.
Yes, again, her obsession with
All right.
Butte.
Will we hear any of The Legend of Thumb Butte at your presentation on the 10th?
I could certainly. I have an original copy of it, and I've Xeroxed a couple copies so that the public can, look through it. It's a long story, and it's basically about a miner, a young Spanish miner, who's trying to find gold on Thumb Butte. And as he's doing it, he keeps having a dream about a beautiful maiden with long black hair, which is a Hopi gal.
Right.
And he basically kind of goes crazy because of his love and tries to find her. And he walks out across the desert, and she talks about him going through the granite dells, and at a certain point he's dying of thirst and hunger, and he's begging God, where is this beautiful maiden? And when he turns around, he sees this thumb pointing to the heavens, and he realizes that it was like a angel who had visited him. So it's very dramatic and kind of odd.
Well, if you have a lot of hours, we're not distracted by news reports every second on your phone.
That's true.
Streaming channels on your TV. There was more time for reflection and thoughtfulness in an era, and once you move to Hopi, where you also are everyone else's first language isn't yours.
Yes.
There's a lot of time you're going to spend inside your head.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. And so it's a beautiful one. She was also really obsessed with like the flora and fauna, and there's a lot of descriptive things about the trees and the flowers and the plants. It's quite an epic poem.
So if you were going to have, if it was, let's say, 1923, 1924, and you could have, or 1955, if you could sit down and have dinner with Kate, what would be what would you ask her?
What would I ask you?
Or what would I say is, well, yeah, what would
I could tell you what we would probably eat if I was.
What would, if you were invited to her little pueblo here in Prescott for dinner? What would she serve for dinner?
Well, she used a wood burning stove even long after electricity was the norm. Another eccentric thing. And you know who told me this story, and also I've read it in your archives, was Melissa Ruffner, who's still alive. She remembers visiting Kate Corey with her mother. Elizabeth Ruffner was her mom.
Right.
And Melissa. And there would be a can of beans on the stove at all times, just like opened from the top, the label taken off. And
simmering.
Kate would just eat out of that can all the time, like vegetarians kind of have to eat all the time.
Right.
So we would probably have beans right out of a can. If I met with Kate. I think if I got to ask her a question, I would probably ask her about why she chose to have so many different kinds of images in her art. So most of us in Prescott who are aware of her have only really seen her Hopi art, the beautiful paintings in the Museum of Indigenous People. But in your archives, you have another 30 or 40 paintings, and they're landscapes and women and pottery and flora and just the depth and strength of all the different images she did. That takes a real talent to be able to do all those things.
I would. And so I'm just fascinated by her. And we're going to take one more break here and thank our sponsors to come to our last segment. But I think we want to come back and talk a little bit about why it's important for us here in Prescott to ensure that not just here in Arizona, but across the country and around the world, people understand the value of and the contributions of these women, Kate Corey, Grace Sparks, and Sharlot Hall, to American culture and society, and how we can elevate Kate Corey's career to a greater level. We'll be right back on Arizona Roundup.
Great.
And another great program from Arizona Roundup. Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Brenda. We can hardly wait till the final part of the story yet to come. And thank you, Jeb, for making sure that those wonderful sponsors throughout the Prescott area, that they not only get their shout out, but we would appreciate if you would make a point of going in and thanking them for their sponsorship of the Sharlot Hall Museum and of Arizona Roundup. And you've heard Brenda. Now you have the opportunity to see her do her work. Here we go. It's Twilight Tales from Manhattan to the Mesas with Brenda Cusick. Here we go. Tuesday, March 10th, 2026 from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Step into the remarkable true story of Prescott pioneer and Manhattan socialite Kate T. Curry, who traveled west to visit an art colony on the Hopi Mesas for 2 weeks and remained for 8 transformative years. That's a story you've been hearing about. So in this special Twilight Tales program, presenter Brenda brings Corey to life through full costume and full person, first-person interpretation, sharing her expectations among the Hopi people and celebrating the 165th anniversary of her birth. Corey's artwork is held in many collections, get this, including the Smithsonian Institution, the Museum of Indigenous Peoples, and of course right here at the Sharlot Hall Museum. There will be a light reception at 5 p.m., followed by the program at 5:30 p.m. in the Education Center at the Sharlot Hall Museum. Twilight Tales is an ongoing evening series dedicated to bringing history to life through engaging after-hours storytelling experience. The seating is limited. However, there's a place for you, and tickets are $30 per person. And that is a bargain. Hi, this is Stan. Thank you so much for your appreciation of the Sharlot Hall Museum and Arizona Roundup. And tell them that you appreciate the Arizona Roundup podcast. I would be grateful. I'm proud to be able to help produce it and distribute it all around the world. And here we go. Back to the program.
Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. And my special guest today has been Brenda Cusick. And we've been having a great afternoon talking about these prominent women here in Prescott, Arizona that helped shape Arizona's early history, its culture. They had a wide-ranging impact. Sharlot Hall, Grace Sparks, and Kate Corey on Prescott and Arizona history. We'll have Brenda back and talk in depth about how each of them played their own role, but when you put them all together, almost in the trinity, the balance between the three of them is amazing, and what each of them did. And I think we need to just say, we know that Sharlot Hall helped preserve and shape Arizona history by pressing hard to save the governor's mansion here and start this museum. And like Barry Goldwater later on say, we need, and other people, we need to save our pioneer history. We need to save and record the history of the first peoples of Arizona. We need to teach and educate and share the history with the next generation. And Kate Corey spent a lifetime writing and recording. She was a photographer at Hopi. She was also an artist, and through her talents as a poet and as an artist, as an advocate to record and celebrate the life of the Southwest and everything she did. And then Grace Sparks, a very practical woman who had a fun side that that in which she just fought to make sure that Prescott remained relevant and prominent, and that its cultural, the rodeo survived, that it would be profitable, and was, she fought to make sure that commerce and people moved to Prescott. She saw the value of tourism. Earlier today, I was doing a lecture on early baseball and how Arizonans bet on spring baseball, which now almost brings $1 billion into Arizona annually. But Grace Sparks believed in that, in this trinity, this balanced trinity of these three women. She saw the value to pick up what she learned from Kate and from Sharlot by example, that it's important to save and celebrate the first peoples of Arizona. And she helped, Grace Sparks, as you've told the story very well, helped save Tootsie Goot and Montezuma's Castle, helped be inspired by Teddy Roosevelt and the Antiquities Act to fight for them to become national monuments and be protected. It's very interesting when you think about them as this balanced trinity of women and what they did and what each of their own talents, right? Yeah.
If we didn't have those three ladies, we might not have the world's oldest continuous rodeo.
I agree, 100%. That's
1921, right. It was almost bankrupt.
Right.
And it was Grace Sparks and some of her, she called them like her girl posse. And they came up with the Way Out West show that brought all kinds of tourists back and put the rodeo in the black. It took them a couple of years, but they did it. And then when you're talking about our first people, we have the Sharlot Hall Museum that we're sitting in right now. But on the other end of Gurley, we have another museum that is built like a pueblo. And they separated the antiquities and made a whole building so that we could keep all of these relics. We had
The Museum of Indigenous People.
Yeah.
Originally the Smoke Eye Museum.
Exactly. Beautiful museum. Kate designed that museum from her experience of living in the Pueblos.
And built with Grace Sparks' efforts
And
with
her
the
money,
WPA.
Exactly.
Building buildings here at Sharlot Hall Museum. Building the Smoke Eye Museum, which today is the Museum of Indigenous Peoples.
Exactly.
The Armory.
Yep.
Recreation
Right
Center for
next to it.
And for health and wellness, the Recreation Center here for the people of Prescott.
And you were talking about baseball, the Lindley Fields right
Ken
next
Lindley
to
Field,
it.
the softball fields right there. Remarkable. And
we would not have those things if it weren't for Grace Sparks. And
Right.
then she let her girlfriends, her lady friends, they designed those things and put them together. It's incredible. And if you look at Lindley Fields, I don't know if you ever notice it, you can see Grace's influence on that. It's got a lot of Art Deco.
It does, yeah.
She was really about Art Deco. She was a little bit tired of the Western,
Right.
Whiskey Road type
sure,
thing.
influenced the construction of the Hacienda in
Absolutely.
1927.
And if you go in there, it's all Art Deco
Right.
and arts and crafts. Beautiful place.
And people put their money on the table and she said, we need a hotel here because we are a going concern. This is a modern town.
Yep.
We got highways coming through here, travel and tourism. People are coming in by train. They're coming in by car. They're going to need a modern place to stay because we're looking forward. We're not a backward looking city. We're Prescott, Arizona.
Yep, and
USA.
she put a portico on that Hacienda, first hotel here to have a
Right.
portico because she was just sure cars would take off.
Right. And of course they did, coming right up 89, US 89, right through town.
Yeah.
And we're also here in 2026. We just looked it up. This is the Kate Corey just had on February 8th, right? Her 165th
Yeah, it would have been her
birthday. Is that right?
Yeah.
February 8th, 1861. She was born in Waukegan, Illinois, and she died June 12th, 1958, in Prescott, Arizona.
Yeah, right up the hill from us. We can almost see the Pioneer home
That's right.
from your office.
And like Sharlot Hall, artist, writer, poet, essayist, both women of letters.
And hard workers.
Very hard workers.
They just did what had to be done. And
Lived fairly Spartan lives,
they did, yeah.
but have not, by not going and staying in New York, like George O'Keeffe, we were talking about Willa
Yeah.
Cather, Mari Sandos. Charlotte never wrote 2 or 3 big novels. Her poetry is not in like Emily Dickinson. Her poetry is not in school books.
But if she hadn't written a poem, we might not be a state.
That her epic poem, Arizona, you just said Kate Corey wrote an epic poem. What's it called again?
The Legend of Thumb Butte. She was
Legend of
kind
Thumb
of
Butte.
obsessed with
with
Thumb Butte.
Modern women helping grow a state, territory from a state, left a great impact. If we could summarize a little bit, on March 10th, people can go to charlottehallmuseum.org to buy tickets to your play, your one-woman presentation on the life of Kate Corey here.
Yep.
5 o'clock. Tickets are still available. We invite everyone to come out come out that evening and celebrate. We're going to have some light appetizers and some wine and soft drinks.
And you're bringing a couple of paintings back to life, right?
Right. We are bringing artwork that will be on display first. We'll have a special exhibition for that night of some portraits of Sharlot Hall by Kate Corey and some of her rare federal artwork she did in the FFA program during the Great Depression.
Again, the tie to Grace Sparks.
Yeah. So, what should we remember about how should we help Kate Corey bring her life? Do we need to try to get a big show together somewhere with bringing 3 or 4 different organizations together to get all that art?
Yeah, you know what? She's in 5 museums in Arizona.
Okay.
She's in the Smithsonian, and they have a museum in her house that she grew up in.
Is she in the herd?
Yes, she is. I've been to the herd as well as the one in Scottsdale.
Scottsdale Museum of the West?
Yes, and her art is also in northern Arizona
Museum of Northern Arizona,
Yeah.
in Flagstaff.
Yeah.
Is she in the Desert Caballeros, the new Sigler Museum in Wickenburg?
Yes. Oh, I don't know about that one. I would imagine, but I have not researched
Right.
that one. But I'm going to go to Chicago this year, and I'm hoping to go to Washington, D.C. and New York in the next 2 years and research Kate. I'm in correspondence with those archivists. I would love if we could bring some of her Waukegan work here.
Yeah, I would think it would be remarkable and do a kind of a joint project. We have the
Why not?
Phippen Art Museum, Museum of Indigenous People, and Sharlot Hall Museum. We look at that trinity of museums in terms of our missions.
Yeah.
3 museums working together. I think it would be remarkable for the 3 to work together to do a showcase on Cape Cory.
Yeah, very powerful 3 museums here, and then, you know, if we could bring some of her work from the Smithsonian and Chicago,
Right.
that'd be great.
All right. Well, Brenda, I look forward to having you back on Arizona Roundup here
Thanks
at
for
Sharlot
having
Hall.
me. Thank you so much for
You're
having
very
me.
welcome. Thank you, Brenda. We'll see you here on March 10th
Okay.
for your one-woman show on Cape Cory.
All right.